Member and recognize a member from Burnaby Lougheed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm very eager to rise on behalf of Burnaby Lougheed today to speak on this critical motion calling on the government, our government, to immediately withdraw from the National Energy Board's review of the Kinder Morgan pipeline and the tanker project, and really do establish a rigorous made-in-BC environmental assessment so that British Columbians, municipalities, First Nations, and most importantly, as myself as a representative, my constituents of Burnaby Lougheed, whose homes, whose schools, and parks this project is planning to ram right through. They need to be able to fully participate and finally get the answers they deserve on oil spill response, emergency planning, financial implications, as well as climate change. I actually don't believe that anyone with sound logic and unadulterated intentions can come to anything other than oppose the current NEB review when considering the key facts on this Trans Mountain pipeline expansion and its application process to date. As we know, Kinder Morgan is a foreign multinational corporation based out of Texas proposing to build this new heavy oil pipeline carrying diluted bitumen from Alberta to Burnaby, unrefined and for non-local use, tripling the current capacity to 890,000 barrels per day. So what's in it for us? What's in it for us in Burnaby, where this new route will drill through the Simon Fraser Mountain to the Burrard Inlet, the northern border of my constituency. So when we look at the economics of it, this project at its peak construction will likely be built by foreign temporary workers, and its long-term only end up creating about 50 full-time jobs. 50 full-time jobs, and put that in perspective, let's compare that with film industry that can bring in 2,000 jobs, $350 million worth of revenue from spin-offs and indirect benefits that our city can get. Over the course of construction and the first 20 years of operation, Trans Mountain's annual tax bill for Burnaby specifically will go from $7 million a year to mere $13.2 million a year at best, which will account for just about 3% increase in a city with an annual operating budget of $230 million. So even our local Board of Trade sees this as an example of how economic benefits of a project of this type do not flow to those jurisdictions like Burnaby that are assuming the most risk. And Burnaby is not a small town that it was decades ago when the existing pipelines were placed. It is now the third largest city in British Columbia with nearly 250,000 residents, and this newly proposed pipeline will pass through some of our most urban, densely populated cores without fully disclosing its plans for spill or emergency response, if it even has any that are credible. Burnaby has already seen 40,000 barrels of oil leaked from existing Kinder Morgan pipeline, including 2 major spills since 2007. So I'm lost for words that our provincial government is still taking a back seat and letting the NEB and the Harper federal government deal with a company whose idea of a response on an oil spill is that oil spills can create cleanup jobs. My constituents, many of whom call Burnaby their home for decades, take real pride in the fact that we have urban amenities while being able to protect over a quarter of our land as parks with open waterways. So they have every and all the right to be fully consulted and answered for a project like this that are planning to ram through our community, but unfortunately, but rather outrageously, the National Energy Board review of this project has been disturbingly undemocratic. Out of 2,000 questions that are submitted and not answered by Trans Mountain, the review allowed 95% to be rejected and only held the company responsible to answer 5%. 5% of the questions were answered. The review refused to answer even the provincial government's questions and refused oral cross-examination of Trans Mountain submission. So not only are the municipalities across BC are calling the provincial government to restore a full public hearing process to the NEB's review of Kinder Morgan application, but my constituents, young to old, Italians to Chinese, academia to businesses, are voicing their concerns at great lengths, hundreds of whom are going as far as protesting on drill sites and many of them getting even arrested in the process, and some are sued in multi-million lawsuits
Thank you, Member.
by the company. This government has the responsibility to respond to people's calls, and it is about time that the Premier does stand up and take back control and let British Columbia decide. Thank you.